Good evening, everybody. Good evening. All right, I want to keep us on schedule here. Oh, it is 6 o'clock on the dot. So thank you all for coming here and getting through the road construction. I didn't realize how many different ways actually had road construction. So 2 seasons in Wisconsin, winter and road construction. So again, thank you for making it. I want to thank Linda. Where's she? Linda's over there. Give Linda and her team here at Brookside a big round of applause. And then I want to thank Dan, Leslie, and Chef Adam for the wonderful dinner tonight. They did a great job. So before we get started into the meat and potatoes, I'm going to have Linda and Frank take us in. One of the big capital improvement projects here was the new generator. And Frank did a lot of work and engineering on this and saved us some additional dollars and ripping up the building by some of his engineering skills that he put forth. And so we're going to just take a quick walk downstairs. And Frank is going to just show us where the generator is and give us just a brief overview, and Linda will help as well. We'll get started now. All right. Well, again, thank you to Frank and Linda for taking us down and seeing the generator, and then hearing a little bit of an update on the KCC generator. These are big projects here. Again, it will help the life and safety issues here at Brookside. So it's a nice overview. I want to just thank the finance team for being here. I want to thank Patty and Barna and Matt and Nick. And the person who really spent a lot of time on putting this together is Chris. And he's just a great person to give a good overview of tonight's CIP. But before I do that, I'm going to turn it over to the chair, who has just a couple brief remarks.
Thank you, Executive Kirkman. As we look ahead to the 2026 capital improvement plan, it's important to understand its significance. This plan encompasses more than just buildings, roads, or equipment. It represents a commitment to the people of Kenosha County. And I want to thank staff as well for all the hard work that they've done. Division heads, department heads, and now it's going to be up to the county board next month to do the heavy lifting at committee and have a good budget for the citizens of Kenosha County. So I just want to thank everyone for being here. And also the key word is compromise the next 6 to 8 weeks. So just keep that in mind as well as we're going through this process. So thank you to everyone for being here tonight.
Chris, I want to turn it over to you. You spent a lot of time on this total overview. Okay, all right. Oh, okay. Let's stand and do the pledge, Supervisor. Yes. Oh.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And at this time, Jill will take roll call. Great. So if we, again, Danny, you want to start? Our supervisors.
Daniel Gaschke here.
Supervisor Gans here.
Julia Robinson, present.
John Franco, president.
Dave Gertson, present. Mark Nordigan, present. Tim Stocker, present.
Thanks, sir.
So I'll call Andres now present. William Grady, present.
Aaron Carroll, present.
Felix Garcia, present. Sheriff Sherman, present.
Sarah Kirby, present. Rita Brown here. Stephanie Nunn, present. Aaron Decker, present. All right. Roll call is done. Complete. Thank you very much. And now I will turn it over to Chris
for an overview of the CIP.
Thank you. We do have a football game tonight, so we'll make this quick. What you see on the first page is the 5-year overview. I guess I should back up, kind of give you a little detail of what this meeting all is supposed to be about. What you see in front of you is not the final version. There's still a lot of work that's still going to be done to balance this out. For one, you'll see the bonding on each one of these years is over 20-some million. Per the debt service plan we have, most of those are down closer to 19, 18 million. So there's still a lot of work moving projects out, prioritizing, et cetera. But what this meeting does is gives everybody a good overview of what we're looking at for 26 and the future years. Even though those are information only, it does give you a preview of what we're looking at, what's down the pipe. For those of you that are newer, we do have some of the lines that are highlighted blue. The significance of those is just that they were put into 26 and not in a previous year. So as I go through this, I don't pick out projects at specific. I'll talk about the blue ones because those are new and to the book and to everybody else. We'll pick some of the bigger projects and then I'll give time for everybody to ask questions for any department. And then we'll just keep flipping pages. So the first one, just high level overview. Page 2 is just a more specific breakdown of 2026 as it currently sits. Again, this is going to change a little bit. Flipping over to page 3 is where we really get into the detail of the CIP. IT, you'll notice that there's a slight increase in what we're presenting for the budget. This is simply because cost of everything is going up. That includes IT equipment. And with where it's at now, a lot of projects do kind of get kicked down the road. Divisions either try and support them themselves or just wait until there's additional funds. So we have a request to increase that. Photo imagery and land info. This is every 2-year project. It's kind of updating that GIS system that the county uses, first responders use, things of that nature. And at the bottom is the CAPA, the contribution from the county for the services they provide. If there's any questions? All right. I will state too, I state it every year. I know a little about a lot. So if there are any detail or any questions, feel free. Maybe I can answer them. We do have a handful of directors. I can hopefully answer in better detail. And a big benefit of this meeting that gets you to look at it, it gets you to ask questions between now and October when we're actually presenting this, and helps those meetings go by a heck of a lot smoother. But moving on, Brookside. This year, nothing new. I was talking to Linda a little bit beforehand. They are hopeful that in coming years that they will be able to fund these bondings, so take it off of the capital budget and be able to provide through Brookside themselves. Willowbrook is blue. It's a new item. It kind of replicates what's already up in Brookside. Willowbrook's entering its 7th, 8th year of being an entity, and it's now getting into that phase where they're going to need to replace furniture and equipment and that such. So we have placeholders of 20,000 going out to kind of see what that does. At the bottom, medical examiner, there's nothing for 26, but there is one for 27 for a freezer. Stop for any questions. I'll keep moving. So facilities is broken out into 3 divisions, technically 4, kind of by CIP. Facilities division that you see here is the Civic Center. That's KCC, KCDC, and the Civic Center campus, less PSB. The new item that you're seeing here is ballistic security partitions. This would be for the courthouse to help ramp up some of the security internally. The A couple of the other bigger ones, although not new, I will touch on. The West End Tower has increased from what you've seen previously. The amount here, is what would be an anticipated cost if we were to construct new out in the West End. Right now, they're kind of looking at a space out at KCVMP. There's still a lot of design and reviewing that needs to go into this. It was between leasing a previous or building new. This number here is building new. Ceremonial courtroom is replicates what was in the budget last year. Bids actually did come back on this project favorably. It allows now where if the county would like, we could repurpose some of those funds and do the windows inside the courtroom. I know that was a topic during the presentation of the ceremonial courtroom, whether they stay in, whether they don't. I'm in favor of doing so. It repurposes money that we've already allocated. It logistically keeps the courtroom open rather than shutting it down twice. It helps energy costs. All kinds of consideration to be put into it, but this is just the FYI that in the budget, this is planned. Technically, it could be voted against. However, this is something that we're putting in to be approved. And then the last one that you see here is the roof replacement. The KCDC HVAC is finally coming to an end this year, which means that the roof project can start. Yeah, the number that you see here is slightly increased from what you've seen over the last couple of years. Those are mainly placeholders, and this is also a slightly better roof than some of the roofs that we've been putting on. Mainly thinking these are buildings that are supposed to be here for 30, 40, 50 years, so why not put something that should last that long? And I will pause there for any questions on the civic center facilities.
Thanks, Chris. So you mentioned that the West End Tower, the 1,260,000 was a different amount than what was in last year's budget. Right. What was last?
I believe last year there was just a placeholder of 300 grand. And just to kind of get it on the radar that this is something that we're looking at.
900 more than last year.
Correct.
Yeah. And when we planned it for last year, what was it?
It was a placeholder looking at leasing.
At leasing, and this is okay. All right. Yes. And then the bonds are all approved on the historical renovation, right? And the HVAC, the bonds are all approved on that, right? So we just need a simple majority, right? Okay. Okay. I yield those. That's my question.
Dave, I just want to follow up on the tower. We also went out and applied for a grant. Unfortunately, we weren't successful in that as well. So the three western communities, Twin Lakes, Randall, and Wheatland, are underserved right now by the towers. And when the trees are fully, you know, when the leaves are on the trees, our first responders, when they go into somebody's house, they miscommunicate. The radios aren't working. So this is to strengthen the system on the far western. We're looking at options where and fixing the problem, but also trying to do it most cost-effective way.
Can I follow up on the comment? So, Sheriff, you see what we're doing with that tower, with your communications? Does that good?
So this is mainly for the fire. So this is
Oh, it's for
this
fire.
Is fire.
Okay. All right, so it doesn't. It's not for our sheriff communications for fire. Okay, good.
That be the countywide fires.
Okay, we will move on to page 6. At the top, you'll see facilities, safety building. Nothing really new. These are things that have been occurring or put into the budget every year. If you're comparing it to the 25 bonding, last year there's a big HVAC project that was inputted to this, and that's why you see such a difference between the two. The human services building, we are moving in next year. So we now have 38,000. It's been in the budget, but this is for equipment. It's a different type of flooring. We can't simply move it from one building to the next, so they're purchasing some new. And the money you see there is the remaining budget that was presented 2 years ago of what we'd be spending out of reserves. At the bottom, there's two changes. One is the major equipment replacement projects. This was previously called HVAC replacements. We want to move it to major equipment, so this can include things like elevators and different things like that. So then rather than having to repurpose or do resolutions to move money, this allows us to do that. In it, we had 2 elevators fail within the last year and a half, 2 years, so this is trying to be proactive that way. The blue, engineering and project management, this is an attempt to try and transfer some levy dollars into capital for use of project management and engineering. We do have similar things like this where personnel related costs are in the budget. It happens in highway, it happens in IT. If we didn't have this, the dollars here are a rounded up version of what the project engineer all in is. That position deals 99% with capital projects, so this is kind of the foot in the door of this process. It makes sense to do this. Other counties do this. We go to conferences where it's talked about where you can capitalize. If we didn't have this position, we would be paying for it and it'd be included in these costs anyways. So that is why you see this item broken out and in blue. It does not affect that position in any other way other than where the funding is. There are no questions. I will flip to page 7. Golf is not on pace for another record year, but it is very closely trailing last year's record year. And in doing so, you'll see bonding showing yet again as fully funded, or you'll see 0 bonding as all these projects are fully funded by the profit that the golf course generates year after year. There's not really too much changed between what you've seen previously and what you have here. I will point out the $1 million that are still in 26, 27 and start to trail off in 28. Those are finishing up what was presented years ago. In 2025, they're hoping to try and construct the Brightondale storage building. It may roll over into 26, and then 26's focus becomes on the pets maintenance building. If we have no questions, I think we might make it even before the kickoff here. Yeah. Parks, page 8. You'll see a few blue items here. All have very good reasons. The license plate readers is one of the items that we talked about before with IT. This is one of the items that was requested but kicked. It's something that the Parks Department wants. They want it at Petrified Springs and at Old Settlers Park. It helps for security purposes. Right now, you can't determine license plates when they come in, when they go. It helps with vandalism, tracking, all those different sorts. So that's why rather than wait for IT to fund it, we have it presented with a parkland offset. The small lift truck, we could have kept this in the pickup truck area, but we broke it out. Full transparency. This is something a little bit different than what a pickup truck is. This is more so for the mechanic. Obviously, it helps with lifting big equipment throughout the shop, as well as when they need to go out throughout the park to work on something on site. They can bring this out, help lift it, help move things out in the parks. I'll jump down to the Petrifying Springs improvements, and then I'll come back to everybody's waiting for in the shoreline. The parking improvements, this is something, it comes up often, right? Parks is a very heavily utilized park, not only with the beer garden there, but the picnic in the park and the other events that are going on. It's becoming somewhat problematic when we have these big events where parking causes safety concerns. People get upset with tickets and different things. So this is our attempt to try help that. It does utilize I think some diagonal parking along some of the roadway near Pavilion 1 or the beer garden. And we would offset this with parkland as well. Jumping up to the shoreline. So previously you've seen some pretty outrageous numbers of 30 million, and we're hoping to get 20 million offset so we could get it passed. That was with a different consultant that, we have been working through. What you see here is working with the consultant that actually did the shoreline for the city. It's a different, less intrusive way to do this, but still gives a good result. The 140 that you see is for the design of that. The 15.5 is a placeholder so they can determine what exactly those costs are in 26. The brick grant that we used to apply for no longer even exists, so that's why you don't see several hundreds of thousands or millions in revenue offset. The 400 is what we think is a realistic approach. And the 15.5 would be if we did it all in 1 year. There's obviously that it still needs to be debated whether this be phased 1 year or what the results are. If there's any more specific questions, I'd gladly turn it over to Wyatt.
Mark, can you use your microphone?
Sorry, Chris. License plate readers recipient pets. Did you say another park too?
Old Settlers,
I'm sorry?
Old Settlers Park.
Okay, Old Settlers. Thank you.
And I just want to mention on the shoreline, obviously I've talked to several of you, but not everybody. So this is a look at it, digest it, ask Wyatt questions, because he's really put a lot of time and effort into this new company, this new engineering firm. The team has definitely put a little extra into it to try to get this on the books for 27. Again, the engineering for next year, construction in 27. So, and again, this is one of those legacy projects. So as the definition goes, it's going to be outside that bonding amount because it is one of those long-term projects that will last 50 years. So, and again, I don't know if Supervisor Morrissey wants to speak to the city's project. It seems to be doing like it held up and it's.
Oh, very well.
Wyatt, I don't have any specific questions about the shoreline revetment, but do you have anything that you'd like to share with us while we're all here together? Anything you'd like to expand upon?
Excuse me, absolutely. So what I can tell you, if you guys want some more details, you know, I'll be sensitive to everybody's time, football game coming up. So there was a different consultant that was used, and this was before I came along. They're Bayard. So they designed a shoreline revetment, and it is a good plan, but there was a lot of intricacies to it that made it a much more expensive project. What we were looking at before we started looking outside of Bayard, because that really just was the first opinion that County Parks got. We were looking at potentially phasing it so that the cost would be a little bit more digestible over the years. So working with Shelley, she was able to connect me with Matt Wright, who runs Red Barn Design and Engineering. So Red Barn did the shoreline revetment for most of the city of Kenosha, as well as a lot of Milwaukee County. So the way that it's going to be done is, as Chris has pointed out, is a little less intrusive. So Red Barn is going to give us two options. One, where we build out a shoreline, sort of a break wall, he calls it, around the existing shoreline. That is, of course, it can be debated whether or not that one is preferable, because if we were to do that, we would be left with what is already there. So it'll protect the shoreline, but we will have the existing shoreline that is still there. We'd have to find another way to handle it. And it's a little bit of an eyesore. If you've been to the area, you can see that it's mostly broken up old sidewalks and concrete from 50 some odd years ago. The other option that we're looking at that is a little more favorable to at least us internally is cutting through the contours of the shoreline using what is currently there. So there's a lot of good, still usable big granite revetment that's there. Use that, bring in some more and build right on top of it and cut a straight line that connects with the shoreline that's already there. So it'll be a nice even cut shoreline all the way along Lake Michigan through Kenosha. All right, thank you.
And why that one particularly would mimic what the city's already done?
Sorry, what was the question?
That will mimic or be similar to what the city's done,
Yeah, it'll be almost identical.
so people can get an idea of what it might look like. And
I would suggest going over to either Kennedy Park or First Avenue. Those would be the closest to what we'd be looking at.
And then Supervisor Geertz.
Thank you. So when will this be far enough along where we can get a pretty solid report that goes to Public Works Committee?
In terms of construction or just design?
Yeah, just, well, the whole you know, a nice, this is I mean, it's $15 million, a nice, will this be something that will, get a solid report for Public Works Committee sometime next year?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, yeah. So
If that-
I can have a report put together once we enter the design phase. We've already been given a cost estimate, which was used to put in the packet here from Matt Wright at Red Barn. So he gave us some very rough numbers and a 2 to 3 page write-up that describes these options. But once he moves into design, we can talk about each phase as it goes along. So the goal is to work on design throughout 26 and move into construction as soon as we possibly can.
And so thanks, Wyatt. And then for finance, as part of that, then finance committee, this is, I mean, it's a big project. It's like the human services building. That, and then you worry with overruns and all the risk there, but so we'll get a report that'll show how it impacts our levies and how much it's drawing out of our, I know it's not part of our debt limit, but so that'll come sometime next year too, and we'll see what the feasibility of phasing this all into our budgets and levies.
Yes, correct, we will. And as Barney and I were just kind of talking, he's like, we'll do a separate initial resolution. Yes, we will, but it will not be this year because we don't know what those numbers are yet. So that would come forward next year as part of next year's budget.
And then, would we look at doing typical 20-year bonds, or is there some other financing vehicle for a unique thing like this?
That's a good question. That's something we would discuss with Ellers as we moved along with this. But at this point, I was seeing 20-year, probably no, it's not bonds, but yes, because it is a lengthy project.
Back to Chris.
Okay, yeah, if there's no other questions with parks, we will flip the page to page 9, the highways division. One blue item here, which is a trailer. The reason that this kind of popped up, we did recently have transition in our shop superintendents. Obviously, they're reviewing things. It's something that he popped up on the radar. The trailer that they have to be replaced is 29 years old. So something that got pushed into 26 rather than waiting. The rest of the equipment here, as I said, we have a lot of work to do yet to balance out this budget. Or squeeze the snake, as a lot of people like to call it. Some of the dollars here, we do have money still left over from previous budgets, from previous trucks. Last year, we talked about the highway department kind of getting away from single axle trucks. So very likely what you see here will have reduction in some of these costs, but still have the same amount of vehicles. We'll take the money from the single axles, repurpose them to the tandems, and reduce the cost for next year. Any questions on highway equipment? I believe the tandem is 2. Yeah, they roughly run, I believe, about 380 to 400 per truck for the tandems. The excavator would be 1. I believe the tractor is 2, and the 1 tons is 2 or 3.
Are we gonna reduce height we buy from one axle to 2?
So in previous budgets, we had on here single axle trucks. So down in project 13 for 27, there's tri-axle trucks. Tandems at one point we're looking at getting away, and then that switched, and now we want to get away from singles and go to tandems. So the money that we had budgeted in, I don't know if it was 23 or 24 for single axles, will now repurpose to this and reduce the bonding for 26. No other questions? We'll flip to page 10. Obviously, the big one on here, it isn't blue, but the transportation infrastructure improvements. This is at 13 miles at roughly $240,000 a mile. It also includes paving for parking lots. Rather than individualizing a lot of those throughout the CIP. Try to use the highway department to be able to replace what they can. If they can't, consult third parties to do it. And also includes costs for the larger culverts that the highway department can't do. There is going to be a correction. The wash bay renovation, project 2 actually should be blue. That's a newer one. Last year, if anybody remembers, we had talked about a master plan that the highways division, had implemented, and it included a lot of buildings, or renovations or improvements to a lot of the work down there, or the buildings down there, which is why you see a decent amount of these between project 7 and 13, where a lot of them kind of have future year projects. Are still kind of working through what exactly those will be, but it's to kind of get everybody's radar on this is something that's being looked at. The wash bay renovation specifically is in 26. The 27 and 28 numbers would kind of be worst case scenario. They're hoping that they can get by with this 30 grand, doing some renovations to the current wash bay. If they can't, they may have to look at numbers that are represented in 27 and 28. But that's still to be determined. Some of these other items here, employee entrance renovation, garage doors, trench drain. Previously, we would have seen those in the facilities department. We have moved those to highways, simply because of the effect that this will have on GTA funds. So this is an operations budget. However, GTA funds are the general transportation aids that highways gets, and definitely helps in reducing levy. It's one of the things that we've been warning that number may go down, which would increase levy. So this is kind of our approach at trying to help offset some of those expenses that go into that calculation and keep that number as high as can be. Hope I explained that clearly enough.
The county truck highway K reconstruction, $1.3 million. What's that particular going towards?
I believe that's real estate, but I'll let Greg comment.
Yeah, so the phase 2 is the phase that's currently under design. So that is from 94th Court, which is where the phase 1 ended, to 115th Avenue, which is near the entrance of the old Dairyland dog track. So we're currently in design phase. So that would be for some utility relocations that we would need to pay for and real estate acquisition. Obviously, if we don't, we're still reviewing all the real estate we need to acquire. Obviously, if it's not needed, we won't use it, but that is there for that.
So it's design phase.
Design phase is ongoing, so the design phase was approved in 2025 budget. So that's been funded, and when that phase in the middle of design is where they determine how much real estate we should acquire to build it. So we're still determining that, but that would be, that's their kind of a worst case scenario, but that the funding is there for any real estate acquisitions. Because the roadway is widening from a 2-lane cross section to a 4-lane cross section, which is out there now. There are certain areas where, there's a standard like 66-foot right of way, which doesn't give us enough right of way to put in the 4 lanes and the bike path, the multi-use path that's on the one side.
Right, thank you.
Thanks. Can I have the floor to follow up on the Highway K? So at the Highway K, you talked about the section you're doing 94th Court to what? 115. And then that's the biggest project on here in 29. We're doing 10.3 million. Is that the same section?
Correct. Yes. So it goes into there's different phases, but we do have Wisconsin DOT. It's called Surface Transportation Program funding. So there is the offset of 3.7 million, but we do anticipate the entire project to be constructed in 2029 for a total project cost to construct at 10.3 million.
I'll jump back up to 2 of the blue items that didn't mention solar stop sign beacons. What this is a carbon reduction process. It takes some of the beacons that are lit up, that are run by electricity, and makes them solar. They do have a grant for the carbon reduction of 36 grand that we put into this, and then the rest would be offset with bonding. The salt shed door and HVAC system, this is something that the state is mandating. Right now, the shed it has a big wide open door to it. They say that it either needs to be tarped, which makes operations quite more difficult during the winter season, or we need to put a door on it. In doing so, we'll also likely need to renovate the HVAC system that's in there to probably get it renovated. Because we do share this with the state, we do expect some type of reimbursement from them. We've heard possibly paying for all of it. What you see in here at least is half of the door, but hopefully we can get this number trued up by the end of the month. And with that, I yield it to more questions.
Chris, the recent Highway C bridge over Des Plaines River. I didn't have a chance to make the meeting last night, but that's something the county's gonna have to deal with. Do we have any idea if that's something that's gonna have to be dealt with right away? I'll say that bridge is in real bad shape.
Yeah, I'll defer that to Greg.
Yeah, so we are in design right now. As mentioned, we had a public informational meeting with the residents in the area and representatives on Pleasant Prairie yesterday. So it was all budgeted in previous years. So the construction and everything was budgeted previous year. So I don't see, it's not in currently because I think it was budgeted in when the 2025 budget included like construction, even though construction is not happening until 2028. So design is 26 and 27, bidding late 27, construction of 28.
So to follow up on the condition of the bridge, it's not that dire then?
Well, I mean, we're not expecting it to fall over tomorrow, but I mean, it's got a structural rating that met the eligibility to meet what's the Wisconsin DOT's local bridge program. So we have funding through the Wisconsin DOT's local bridge program to pay for the replacement of the bridge. And unfortunately, you know, once you get the funding, you have to go through all the process to design it and build it and everything else. And it takes time to do that. You can't start that until you get the funding. So, I mean, we are watching it. You know, I've had a couple of structural engineers, a bridge inspector that we consult with, go out and look at it. I mean, is it a concern? Sure, but there's no need to close it at this point. But yes, it does need to be replaced.
Because I believe highway, the bridge on JB out in the western part of the county, I believe we had to shut that bridge down. And it was shut down for a long time before we could start construction. The construction moved fairly quickly. It was the same situation, but maybe not to the same degradation. I don't know. That goes back a few years. Okay, thank you.
The salt shed, which salt shed is that?
So, oh, I was gonna say, go ahead. This
no, go ahead.
this would be the current one. The
Wait,
thought,
the one at KCC?
oh, you're right, yes, this is the one at KCC, not the dome near the interstate.
Okay, and is that the one that there were discussions about replacing that salt shed?
Yeah, so
What is the plan to replace it? And we're spending $140,000 on something that we're gonna replace?
correct. Now, when we replace it though, the thought is that we're not going to tear it down. It's not going to be utilized for salt, but it can still be utilized for storage of some of the equipment, which is why we're more comfortable with putting the door on it and upgrading the HVAC because it still will be utilized.
Oh, so it'll be there, it just won't be a salt shed anymore. A salt shed will be somewhere else.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I'm gonna revisit the wash bay renovation and winter operations facility. Now, I know you said that these are placeholders down the road, but it's 1.4 million and 2.2 million. So, you know, I always get nervous when there's a placeholder there that's very large compared to what it is now. Because then we can say, wow, you were notified that it could be huge. Well, what are we going from 30,000 renovation to 1.4 million? What does that look like?
The 1.4 would be building a brand new one outside of the building where it currently is. So that's where the 210 comes for the design of that. And then the 1.4 is constructing a whole new building, wash bay, whatever. The 30 grand is what we're hoping for, which just remodels what we currently have.
Okay. I mean, so that's worst case scenario, we have to build a building. Right. Okay, I get that. And then, winter operations facility going from 400 to 2.2 million. What are we looking at there?
So I guess I could hand this over to Greg. I believe the 400 still goes towards,
Yeah, so the 400 is to do some additional master planning and looking at hopefully getting into the design, and that is the salt shed build, right? So that would be also most likely looking at needing to acquire some right of way. Not right of way, acquire some property to build it on because we don't have the room on our current facility. So it's doing a little bit more engineering and planning, and then looking into what it would actually cost to purchase property and to build the new salt shed that also included like brine making, some other operations. So that's why the 2.25 million.
All right, thank you.
Where are you thinking of building the new one? If we don't have the property?
The master plan is to move east, to try to buy property east of where we are, and then to purchase property so that we could build the new salt shed.
Okay,
That's what the master plan currently has in it. That's what we're reviewing to figure out is that our best option or not, or is there some other way to, is there another location that is better, more fiscally responsible?
is that because the pond is north of there?
North of it is the pond, and then the arboretum and the prairie lands area there is there with the walking path. So it was not the intention to disturb that area.
Okay.
any further questions? Seeing none, we'll flip to page 11. Here is planning and development. There's nothing new here. The vehicle that you see is replacing the sanitarium vehicle. The lease was supposed to be up mid-year of 26. That vehicle was actually in an accident, so it very likely is going to be replaced a little bit before that. The South Branch Pike River, we recently had presentations and approval of. What you see here is the 2.5 not to exceed initial resolution that would be included with that project. I leave that open for any questions for P&D.
Is that South Pike number lower? I thought the number was higher. Thought the bonding was over 3 million.
No, so we already had some
Right.
put towards it. We already have a good amount of the real estate. We have recently reached out to some of the property owners for that, so the project is moving. This is the remainder. The hope again is not to have to utilize that full 2.5. Hopefully Root Pike Wind is able to find some extra funds that help contribute to the acquisition of one of the parcels, and then that would reduce that total. If everything will go to plan, I don't know, would they still be able to construct all through 26 or would it roll into 27? I mean, this gives the fund and the spending authority too. But I don't know the actual timeline. I'll let Andy speak to that.
Yes, currently the timeline is for construction to start the winter of 26. So basically almost like a year away from now, later through the winter into the spring of 27. That's the current timeline.
And
No.
I'll also clarify, as Chris said, we have authority and we've had some items in the budget. This gives us the authority to continue with the project. We have an initial resolution that covers the entire amount. But every year when we go to sale, we say, what is the status of the project? Do we need to borrow now? Will we hold off on borrowing? So the borrowing will occur as the need occurs, as the project progresses. So if there are any delays, it will coincide. We won't borrow the money up front. We'll borrow the money as it's needed.
We'll flip to page 12, which is law enforcement. They have the most blue, but they also have guns, so you guys can deal with them as you please. The big thing here is fleet vehicles. They currently have vehicles that are waiting to be, what do you call them, upfitted. So they're not bonding for additional vehicles because all they would do is sit another year. Instead, there is a couple different new items. A lot of these have to do with some of the operation changes, I believe, with the cooking staff at KCDC. We do have a note here. I do have to change the name on body cameras. In 26, that does include just body cameras. In 27, it will also include tasers. And they're currently working through what those prices and contracts and negotiations would be. What they have represented here is hopefully the worst case. But just an FYI, that is not just body cameras, that will be additional. Because I simply don't know the details on a lot of these blues, I'll kind of kick this over to the sheriff's department to kind of give.
Thank you, sir. That number does include the squad cameras in the squads, the new body worn cameras and the new tasers. That's a very large all encompassing number. We met with Axon yesterday, their rep, we know that this is a worst case scenario number. They're sharpening their pencils allegedly, so we're gonna get back with them very near future and try to fix that number a little bit. I told the guys we'll address it. They want us to do this whole package and we want to. It's what the country police has. A lot of agents are going to it. It's phenomenal technology, but I'm trying to pay less since we have a very large order, obviously. We're not planning on replacing tasers in the detentions because we still have a lot of serviceable tasers that can move over to detentions. So this number does reflect new tasers in detentions. And other than that, that number hopefully can come down, but covers a lot of equipment that this number for 480, that is specifically our body camera for 26. So all the other equipment is all part of different packages, different line items from the past. So that would be coming out of those line items in the future.
Yeah, that number really gave me a little heartburn for the topic. So, I mean, I understand that we're working towards that. You want them to sharpen their pencil and stuff, but going from, I also heard the tasers were only 150,000. So to go up to, 1.2 million is quite a bit. I will want to know what we're paying now for what's in the cars and what we're paying now as opposed to what we'll negotiate down the road. And we don't have that now. This is moving forward. When I want the body cams, but I didn't see this number coming. This is very large. So I hope they do sharpen their pencils. And when are you looking at having some kind of idea on how that's going to progress?
Well, we just met with the rep yesterday, and that's
okay.
The owner of the company is very involved. Met him, trained with them, I'm a taser instructor as well. But company's huge now. They're huge. So not going to move as fast as I wanted. I said, well, can we meet in a week or two? So they're going to get back with me when we can do that in the nearest future. And I'll let you know that if you want to know. But the reality of it is that I'm not going to say pressure, but there's a lot of interest in us having the same ecosystem in the county. So everything transfers to the district attorney's office, everything's faster, if that makes sense. So they don't have to try to figure out different systems for the evidence and whatnot.
Yeah, when you start talking technology, it goes over my head, but the numbers don't go over my head. So, all right, I look forward to hearing that report and seeing what we can do and what it all encompasses.
Sure. What we'll do is we'll Ms. Clark and I will break it down into what that equipment costs at the time we put it in the squads. Because we have the breakdown per squad, every item in the squad. And like I said, those cameras come out of that expense. The recording for the squads, the cameras in the squads, including backseat, all that goes into the same recording system. Where we've, as you guys know, we've piecemealed this together with different systems over the years as we've developed this technology, nationally. So we try to get like more actuarial type look at those numbers.
Thank you.
Sheriff, could you maybe, when you do put the report together, then also show us what the current equipment does, it looks like, and then what the new equipment will? Because again, Chair Newhouse and I, for our joint services, we do hear about what the city does for the accent with the redaction and those types of things. I think it might be beneficial for people to understand how those systems interact. And then, what it looks like as a finished product. I mean, it might be helpful for people to understand, maybe have a deputy.
Absolutely, it's
And show-
incredibly comprehensive.
It-
So they had to kind of hit me in the head a little bit to get me to figure the whole thing out. I was like, maybe I'm kidding. It's impressive. So, thank you so much.
I have a question of the sheriff. These 1.2 million, that's on the high end, obviously, you said.
As high as it can be.
Are you signing a contract for how many years when you do this?
There's options between 5 and 10.
Okay, so you are signing a
It will be
contract.
a contract, yes. That's why it'll be the same number.
That's what I figured. I guess Patty or Barna, how do we work on that where for payments, if we're bonding for it and we approve or a 5-10 year contract gets approved, how do we approve the funding for 5 to 10 years? Or do we not do that and do we just hope that every year it's gonna be approved in the budget?
480 you see here in 26, that's the last year of the 6-year contract.
Right, I mean, we signed a contract 5 years
I
ago.
understand.
What happens if this year the 480,000 doesn't get approved in the CIP? That's my question. How do we do that?
Well, for the 2026 amount, that's the last year of the contract with the current provider.
Right.
And from 2027 to 2030 here is just for information. It's the estimate. So none of that is being approved with anything part of the 2026 budget. That will have to stand on its own when we look at 2027 budget and CIP. So at
So
that time, whether it's a 5-year or a 10-year, that's all part of the deal as well. But so in 2027, if that is approved, technically you are approving a 5-year contract at that dollar.
So if the contract is approved for 5 years, at that time, we are approving the spending for 5 years.
Correct. Yeah, the county's entering into a contract, I'm sure there's provisions on that.
With our new debt policy, we will probably come forward with a separate initial resolution on this item that we cover we can only authorize 5 years on borrowing, but it gives us then the authority. So if something were to change in the future, the bonding would already be covered, that we would not lose that funding if there were a change in the board and they didn't want to support the case.
So the bonding will be approved for 5 years. Obviously, we just won't bond for it at one time. We'll space it out for 5 years.
You understand on the, yes.
And then to the sheriff, how many vehicles are waiting to be upfitted at joint services?
Best of my knowledge, we tried to figure that earlier today, 21.
And how many do we buy a year?
13, but we're not buying next year.
Okay, so we're 2 years behind in upfitting. Is that what you're saying?
Well, that's what we had even more than that because of the shipping and all that. Yeah, squads for that whole year, they all came in at once. That's why there's a glut of squads.
So do we anticipate those 21 cars being done by next budget?
I would hope.
Upfitted,
I was hoping by the end of the year, but I was told it's not like, so, not close. Like, we did look at going out to a different vendor to try to upfit those squads. But, the cost, well, everyone did this because we're not unique. Every agency couldn't get squads during that same time, the shipping and the, equipment shortage. And then when it all came in, everybody did that. So we don't typically go to outside vendors. So those outside vendors got completely, inundated with work. So to go to them was, they couldn't even fit us in, but if they could, it would still have been cost prohibitive in relation to what we usually pay.
Okay, so how many vehicles do we typically take this out? 13 a year
Annually, yes.
and every year, and that's how many joint services can handle? So typically, there's no backlog.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Sometimes we have to get in line with KPD because, you know, we work together with joint services, but it's never been like this. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
No other questions, for Sheriff, I'll jump down to joint services. This actually should have been blue as well. But what this is the use of funds that have already been approved and carried over. And it's being allocated for our portion of the joint services for some new, equipment and software. Assuming there's no questions with that, this page 13 did try to assist on breaking out some of the legacy projects, so you can see what that actual bond, for the debt service would be, by breaking out the legacy projects. And then at the bottom of that, you'll see what happened in 2025 for comparison. Again, none of these numbers are final yet, but it gives you a view of what we're looking at. The page after that is just a summary that kind of breaks it up into different types of projects and shows you a revenue in a more summarized version than having to kind of go through each page. So you can look at that as you wish. The 2 pages behind that, what we are doing for the CIP budget this year is we're actually giving the detail pages a little revamp. Adding a picture to it, as you kind of see on these pages. I picked Supervisor Gens's favorite project, the Human Services Building, as the example number 1. This and the project behind it, you'll see these pictures are very nice. Some of the pictures obviously aren't as great, but it does give you an idea of what is an attenuator, what are we approving in this budget, and you can see a picture of a crash cushion and different things like that. At the bottom, you'll also see a little tidbit for what the budget has been previously. There's 4 different versions of what that language is. We obviously have here showing you 2, telling you that it's either a unique project and it's telling you what we have put in the budget previously. This includes all the revenue, expense, spending authority, carryover, if levy was used. If it's an every year thing, we tell you what the cost was the year prior. If it's an every other year thing, we tell you what the budget that was approved the last time that project was approved. One more. Oh, the last one is just if it's brand new, obviously it shows 0. It says that this project is moving a capital project. We think it's definitely certainly an upgrade to what we have. If you're familiar with the current budget book, there's 2 on each page. It is just the scope and what the current funding and future informational dollars are. We hope that this gives a much better picture, no pun intended, to what it is of going forward for the CIP projects.
You mentioned going back in the past, but it starts at 2026. So in the future, you're looking at having like 25 or something prior to, so we could see what they were, or?
No, so at the bottom here, you'll see the expense total for this specific one is 13.75. What that includes is the previous budget that was included, that was all revenue, that neighborhood investment grant, and also includes the total dollars that were approved for use of reserves and human services fund prior to what this budget is. So you can essentially take what's in that bottom corner and add it to what you see in 26, or use it for reference for if it's a reoccurring one, like you'll see for this courthouse one. The last time that was budgeted, because it happens every year, it was at 29,000, and this year we're proposing 77. So it just kind of gives you a point of reference for those specific types of ones. For the ones that are ongoing or a unique project, the Human Services Building ceremonial, a project that is redoing the HVAC, and we did design in 1 year, and now we're doing construction. It'll show you what the design costs were the year before, or if there was any construction add there and now we're adding more dollars on top of it. It's just kind of give a whole picture of what that project previously was or currently is.
Thank you.
Is there sort of a best practice in terms of, the percentage of total bonding and relative to the total budget? It seems like it's about 7% here. Is that about right? Seems like a good number to me. I'm just curious, that's all.
When it comes to what our debt services for over levy, the rating agencies look at that and categorize us as moderate debt profile. So we're not heavy debt when it comes to our capital, but we're not low either.
Oh, what's low and what's heavy? I mean, if we're moderate, what roughly, or a number? Oh,
Currently, we're about $19 million debt service per year. I believe 15 or 20% higher than that.
Yes, I don't recall them giving us a criteria of where the heavy is versus the mid moderate versus the light, because we've been moderate the entire time I've worked with this. But we look at the overall debt service payments as we have a debt policy, and it lays out the metrics of how much we can borrow versus equalized value. The state allows you to borrow up to 5% of your equalized value. The county has a policy that says no more than 0.8%. So we look at that metrics when we're looking at borrowing. We look at how much the debt service is of, well, overlapping debt is part of the total, but yeah, that's for the rating agencies to look at. There are 3 criteria in our debt policy. One is the amount of debt, which is the 0.8%. How much per thousand of equalized value we're paying, and it can't go over, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on it.
yeah.
One is 15% and one is $1.50, and we're well below all of those.
Okay, well, that's good. Okay, so the 0.8% is a percentage of what?
Equalized value.
Equalized value, okay.
Yeah, and I think our plan, which is we've given you guys the rating agency presentation, and every time Greg from Ellers comes and presents, whether it's the when we're looking at the initial resolutions with the budget, or when we're going for the authorizing resolution or the sale, he has all of those worksheets, and those debt metrics are laid out in there, and you can see where we land.
Have we sold the bonds yet?
Yes.
Yeah.
That occurred on the 19th. We got an interest rate of 3.1448 for a 10-year bonds.
I believe those debt metrics were developed with Ellers, with the county board supervisor sitting to the left. So right.
Yes, several years.
Thank you.
I don't see any more questions. I want to.
Yeah, well, I was just gonna wrap it up if there are no more questions. Again, the point of this meeting, or the big benefit of this meeting, is take this home. Although the numbers may change, likely the projects don't. So if you guys have any questions on any projects, please reach out to me or the division staff directors to help answer any of these questions. And then, yeah, I will send out this document as well via email for a lot of the supervisors that weren't able to make it today. It'll obviously go to everybody, but so they can have a look at it as well. And I defer any closing statements to.
Just make sure that, I mean, you threw the caveat out there that some things may change between now and then. Just make sure you let us know what those might be, so we don't have to sit here and compare this document to a new document, you know, line by line. So if there are any big changes or surprises or anything, make sure you let us know down the road.
Okay, yeah, we can do that. Odds are, most of this is just going to be pushing things out or getting more tight numbers, but if there's any big changes, we can definitely point them out in October when we're going through it.
Well, I want to thank everybody for coming here tonight. Hopefully you get home for a kickoff. Remind you that the budget address is going to be given on October 7th. see some of you up at the WCA conference, the 21st through the 23rd, up at the Dells. Again, if anybody has any questions specific to anything in this, either reach out to Chris or to any of the directors. And thank you so much for taking the time tonight to come out. Appreciate it.